It's been a while since we've done a video for a variety of reasons. We wanted to go through some of the question and answers that came through some of the previous videos Mr. Scherer and I made along with other interviewers. The first question we had from Simon Wells was, what year were you captured and where?
I was captured in 1944 and near Osipovici. That is very near to Poland, still West Russia.
Okay.
And it is near Bobruisk. There I was captured in the middle of a huge forest.
Michael S. had a question for you. What were the tips for looking so healthy and young?
Well, I would say God keeps me alive, so He has to keep me in a degree of health, you know, that I could talk to people and inspire people. I eat potatoes and lettuce like everybody else. And
yeah, but you never smoked?
No, never.
You never
smoked,
drank
and I
much?
don't drink.
Yeah. And you
drink.
were outdoors, you're very, very outdoorsy.
Yeah, and we did a lot of walking, a lot of exercise, swimming, and cut my own wood up in a cottage and split it all by hand. Although there was a splitter on the lake, I didn't want it. I wanted to split my woods, and I always moved.
Well, just that in itself is a testament of your determination, of your will, because it's unheard of, especially today, for people of our generation to build a log home from scratch, to, you know, make the road. Like, you had to cut all the trees down just to make your road.
Yeah, and dig the roots out. Right,
and I mean, that's with a shovel and a pick. I mean, it's crazy, and every log was put on top of every other log by yourself.
Not only your generation, but my friends who were, one was a year younger, the other was 15 years younger. They came over and they stand behind me. I didn't hear them coming, and they watched me to move a big boulder into the right place in a retaining wall. And when I turned around, I saw they were there, and they called me crazy. And even if it takes 5 hours to move that boulder to the right place, I took the 5-hour move.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But that's unheard of today, you know? Like, everything's with a tractor or equipment of some sort. One question was about your time in the camps. And you were mentioning how sometimes some of the German corporals or guards were more harsh than the Russian. And this gentleman here asked if he thought it was because they were communist Germans and you guys weren't. And you said no, it had nothing to do with that.
No, it has nothing to do. They wanted to save their lives. They were afraid to starve to death. So they said, my father was a communist, we were communists, and the Russians couldn't prove it. They were in Germany at this time, in the eastern part of Germany, and they knew who was communist or not communist. But they were just people who wanted to survive. They had to kick the people around. I mean, I give you an example. We walked in the mill, we walked over the frozen lake Tura and walked in the mill all night, and we had a pile of dirt and we had to clean that on a little machine, turn it so it would blow the dust, the dirt off, and the wheat kernels were left. We all took a handful of wheat kernels and put it in our pocket so we could eat it at home or sitting on our beds. And it was a cold day, it was -40. When we came to the camp, the Staatsner said, the first fleet 5 passes apart, the second fleet 3 march. They went 5 and they were 3. And they started here and they went through the pocket and found a handful of, maybe 20 kernels. He threw it in the dust and kicked the man right down to the rock bottom, and when he was in the 40 degrees on the bottom, he kicked him in the stomach and in the head. That was really murderous, this was gruesome as I can see. And from this day on, I wanted to kill this man.
Yes.
But he was about 8 years older than me, so he's dead anyway. So I don't have to, but my wife was really afraid that I would meet him somewhere in Montreal or somewhere. I forgave him in front of God, but I mean, he was really, really cruel. And he kicked people to death. They couldn't walk anymore, and they couldn't go to the latrine anymore. And they pissed beside the bed, and they called Staats, now you have to do something. And he said, out of the bed, and he kicked the man to death. In the barrack, he kicked this very sick man to death.
Wow.
Many people were looking for them. They stood in the east, East Germany. They couldn't come to West Germany where their home was, because they were too unjust and too cruel, to us guys, That's where the German leadership, of the camp and outside too, on the kolkhoz, commune outside in the wilderness. They were very, very cruel and very unjust, very, very unjust.
Yeah. Another question we had was just they were asking what psalm it was that you remembered when you were on the front lines.
Psalm 91, where it said, you can step on a snake and she won't bite you, and you can, and 1,000 men on the left die and 1,000 men, but many, many died. But on the other side, there were 10,000 of men and many of them died. So it's, and I didn't die, and I was in the very first line where there was, as far as we can see, right or left, nobody left there. Because I really studied the Bible only after coming home, and I read the Psalm 91, and I thought, wow, that's what happened to me, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a story about a corporal who took his own life, and we just wanted to have you share that story with us today.
Well, we were out on a kolkhoz, that is a few barracks and lot of land which was what? There were sometimes potatoes, sometimes peas, sometimes something else. There came somebody who was a high-up officer from the east, somewhere in the eastern provinces, because he was an Asian man with his wife. He had 2 lovely children, a boy and a girl, and I assume he said something wrong against the party management, and they said, okay, you go to Tumen and you go to the wilderness and you live your life there. And so we never saw him. And then suddenly they were gone, and what we heard is there was a little store. They had food in it, and there was a woman there, and she kept a book to whom that food went. So that was only for the Russian people. The Russian people were fed from this little store. And there was a little barrel with margarine, and this officer, Asian officer, didn't have enough to eat for his family. So he, in the night, somehow he found a way to get into that store and took some margarine out. But then he came a few more times, and the barrel went down, you know, the material went down, and the woman in that store found out that somebody must come in the night and take some margarine out. So she was hiding behind a barrel, and sure enough, in the night, that high-up officer came in and took some margarine, and she made a report. And he heard about the report, and that was too much for him. I mean, even the life there in this in this wilderness, that was not his life. So he shot his two beautiful children, his beautiful wife and himself, and that was over. The hardship for him was over. But all because of maybe a pound or two of margarine. Now, that, I mean,
just to have his family survive.
To make his family, and I mean, he didn't steal luxury, he didn't steal expensive liquors or something. He only wanted a little bit more margarine. If he wouldn't have shot the whole family, they would have sent him to northern Siberia in some mine and never let him come up again, you know. So it would have been for, and his wife to never, and his children to a third camp. So he had to do it, and I found that very sad, because it was the only family we had there in this Scherer, you know, there. That was a terrible thing.
We just have no idea, our generation, you know. We complain about COVID, but...
Yeah.
There was another story you talked about cooking potatoes from manure.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
Well, they went with us to a potato bunker that was under the earth. So in winter they wouldn't freeze. The potatoes can take up to -3, not more. After -3 they start to freeze. So we had to take the foul ones out. And they were big potatoes, nice potatoes. And there were air shafts in, you know, air shafts, a box, a long box. It went, produced the roof, stuck out of the roof, which was like this, and there was one thing you could shut off in the bottom, and there was outside a piece of plywood which goes shut off the air there. One outside the roof, one inside the roof. So I found a piece of wire which is very hard to find. Siberia has no wire, as something produced is not there. So. But I found some wire, rusty wire, and I took that with me in the morning. They put a big lock on outside, so we couldn't go outside, so we had to walk and take the foul ones out, and I took the wire and pushed it through the potato, and I made a thing like this. There were maybe 4 pounds potato, and I pushed it into this box and I closed it. But in the night before, I dropped it from the roof down with a piece of iron steel mother, you know, a screw mother, and it made boom inside. Now I knew it was there. Now I filled the potatoes in, pushed it back, and in the night I went there behind the roof, so there was the corporals, so they couldn't see me, and I pulled this whole chain with potatoes up, and I put it around my neck, my coat over it, and I went down. The Tatar soldier, he came, and while we were putting the hay together for the cows, and then he said, "Oh, Gerbert, it is Suda." He called me, and he said, "Some son of a bitch, you know, stole potatoes and buried it in the manure." He said, you can eat it.
Oh, wow.
And so I took this and brought it home.
You didn't know you were the son of a bitch.
And so I cooked potatoes, and Starzner came, this cruel guy,
Right.
German guy. He said, "What are you doing cooking potatoes? Where are the potatoes? You know, where are the potatoes from?" I said, "The Tatar gave it to me. Somebody buried it in the manure."
Wow. Yeah.
and he didn't like that. And then, I cooked another time potato and another time potato because I was stealing more.
Yes.
And he said, "And what's this potato? How many potatoes?" I said,
They keep appearing.
he gave that to me. I told you he gave it to me, the Tatar, so I cook it.
Oh, you're funny. I think, you know, one of the questions that was asked about how you stay young and looking so healthy at your age, because Mr. Scherer is 96 and a half, and I think one of the things is your sense of humor. It's amazing that even during the war, he would always be the one trying to keep everyone's spirits up. He was the one making jokes, or he would find humor in anything. And just the fact that you're able to find humor still today, that's just your personality. And I think
we have to, in this world, especially now, it's important to laugh, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember things, and one day we were barefoot walking into the taiga to cut wild clover. Now, we were not used to be barefoot, but we had no shoes for that summer. So our toes are together, and that gets red and painful. And there were 3 guys coming behind me, and I was the first one. I walked toward where we cut the clover, and I was singing. And I said, "You hear that guy? He's singing. That's the beginning. He's getting crazy."
Right.
That's the end of him.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, what are you singing?" I said, "Well, I'm singing because next year at this time I'm at home and I sit on the table and eat cheesecake and have a coffee with my mom." I said, "Now we know that you are crazy. You never go home."
Right.
But I went home in the next year, despite my anti-Bolshevik attitude, and I went home. Yes, I was the last one to go out of the camp, but I went home and I had that cheesecake with my mom, you know.
Right.
There were many moments we were afraid to go out to work. In the morning it was -50, -55, and you come out of the barack and you steam like a hot potato. And you know what that means? The heat goes out of you.
Yeah.
It was dangerous. And I said, "Wow, it's cool in the shadow here this morning." And he said, "Are you crazy? Cool? It's not cool, it's really cold."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's what I said." You know, so I got the blood going with these guys, you know, so they...
But what, was that always in you to be like that, or...
Yeah,
because that's not normal to be like that in those conditions.
I think so. And even in the army we marched and marched and marched and marched, and I said to my friend, "Now, you know, we do something. We say there is no white mice, there are no white mice, there are only grey mice. If they turn around in flower, they are white, but they are still grey, their fur is grey." And then I started with him to talk about white mice, and he said, "No, we went with the school somewhere and they showed us all the mice were white." And I said, "No, a mouse is always grey, But if she turns around in flower, sure she's my fine. No, the next one said to the row in front. No, we were also somewhere in my school time. There were white mice. There were regular mice. No, there's no such a thing. And then the dispute started. But you know, that was the only thing we had.
Yes.
I mean, we were marching for days now.
Yeah.
And there was no transportation. It's not like the American army, they jump on a jeep and they go. We had here our legs.
Yeah. Another question was, it's what you guys did, you know, during your days off, in between work.
You mean in the camp?
In the camp.
In the camp in Siberia. The day off, yes, there was a day off. Because they had a Sunday, but Stalin put away with a Sunday. He didn't want them to go to church, he didn't want them to rest. So as soon as the people had to work 7 days a week, the production went down from 80% to 40%. So he could see that it doesn't work, so he reinstalled the Sunday.
Right.
But Sunday, we were sleeping. We lived in a barack. I lived here, the next guy here, the next guy here, and on the top, and we were talking. Some were sleeping, some were talking. There was nothing to eat. There was nothing.
What was the morale like in the camps?
It was always very sad, very miserable.
And the people...
There was no good time. Nothing.
So how did people not just want to die? Did people commit suicide?
Yeah. I had malaria, 46, 104 temperature I had. Unbelievable hot, unbelievable cold before. Now there was a man, he was from Silesia, and here was a man from the Rhine River. He was young and he was 18 years older, and they talked. And they said, look, we are never getting out alive here. So we are dying, but we are dying slowly. But next time we get tobacco, we're gonna buy salt. The Romanians bring us salt somehow. And we swallow the salt and it destroys. Now we have water in the legs because our kidneys don't work anymore. But with the salt we kill our kidneys completely and the water comes up. And when it comes to the heart, boom, it's finished. So they did. They bought the salt and they ate the salt and they died both. And that's it. They didn't want to live there anymore.
Yeah.
It was just too much for them, you know. And one was like me, 20 years old, and he was 38 years old on the other side. They just didn't, and they were normal people.
Yeah.
Just normal people. And they...
But what was it in you that kept you wanting to live through that?
Well, I don't want to die in this dirty barack. I wanted to survive or try to survive this barack.
Yeah.
And I wanted to come home. I had only one thing in my brain. I wanted to see my mom again.
But you wanted to live to see your mom, but what was waking you up in the morning saying, I'm going to survive today? Like, was there anything in your thought process or in your heart that made you...
Sometimes I had no hope.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had no hope, but then I remembered what God told me on the way down from the Ural Mountains on the 24th of December 44, Christmas Eve. we went in the night, 12 o'clock, downward. I said, oh, we go over the Ural Mountains, which runs north-south into Siberia, and I talked to myself and to God at the same time, and I said, now we are going down in this endless Siberia where I will die, and nobody knew my name, and nobody finds my grave again. And God said to me, no, I know your name, and I lift you up from all your deathbeds, and I bring you home, and I restore your health, and you will be a mountain of faith, and you will testify about me. And all that happens. And so when I was really down in the barracks and almost dying, I didn't remember what God said to me. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But then when I was with my back, there was something wrong with my whole ribs. I don't know what the sickness was. Pain, and I was really dying. I said, well, God, now is the time you lift me up. And he lifted me up because he made this guy come with him right over my head, and they said, look, Scherer is dead.
Right.
Now we eat his soup and his bread this at noon.
Yeah.
And this evening we do the same. And tomorrow morning we have to tell the...
Yeah, because they thought you were dead. They thought you were dead.
That he's dead.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you don't eat. I was almost dead, but I didn't allow them to eat my soup and my bread, and I came up, and a month later I was walking outside, and I made it to this.
Yeah, but you remembered that what God had spoken to you, and you hung on to that hope.
Yeah.
But is there anything else? Like, how did you keep your positive attitude, which you still have to this day? How did you not despair? I mean,
maybe it's
all God put that in you. Yeah.
Maybe it is in me, you know. I could hunker down below my one blanket with a hole in it, and I could survive this day and the next day and the next day and the next day. And I said to myself, well, one day, the day must come, either I die or they say you are going home. Now the war is over, you know.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to keep up a good attitude. If you're so hungry, I mean, there came a doctor. She was 40 years old, had reddish hair. She had to put all these people in categories.
Yes.
Category 1, 2, 3. 1 would be able to walk, 2 they have to stay here, and 3 are very dangerous. They could die anytime. And so she said to the first one, come down. And he couldn't come down. He had tuberculosis. He was 1 day before he died. And I was the second one. She said, Ashtopalit, what is your sickness? And I said in Russian, I'm not sick. I need more soup and more bread, and I could go out and walk.
Yes.
And she smiled at me, and her tears were running down. And I said, wow, if her tears are running down, I looked at my legs. It was all brownish and wrinkly, you know, and I was 20 years old. I mean, I looked like a skeleton. And no wonder this woman cried, because it might be that her son was in the Red Army, and if he's treated like we in Germany, well, then there was no reason to smile, you know. Her tears I can see today, you know. I will never forget it. If I grow 1,000 years old, I always see this woman sitting there in uniform and write me category 3, you know. That is, they call it, I was a dystrophisky. And a dystrophisky, when the muscles go away from your body. But that was not a sickness, that was starvation.
Yes.
And she knew all that, you know. And so...
but it's amazing, though, the power of compassion, you know. In the world we live in today, there's so little compassion, there's so little understanding, and the world is so polarized and extremes, and if you believe this, then we're friends. If you don't, then we're not. But to think of, if we bring it all back to the basics of life, where it's about life and death, human to human, and we see and grasp each other's suffering, maybe she just felt compassion for you. And you remember that at 96 and a half.
Yeah.
You know,
it was like yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw her face, her uniform, she had yellow things here on top. She had a green uniform and she had nice reddish hair, and she smiled. She smiled at me, but the tears were really running, not one tear. And I said, wow, I must look horrible, you know, for her, 20 years old. Well, if you get nothing to eat, you end up, you have a leathery skin and you cannot walk anymore. And that's all.
But when it comes to survival and to that depth of suffering, I mean, that one corporal you had that was jerk, you know, he would never have compassion, but she was a Russian.
Yeah.
And she felt compassion for you.
Yeah.
You know, and the German was on your team and he had no compassion.
Compassion.
And so it has nothing to do with what side we're on.
No.
When it's suffering is suffering, it's like everything gets stripped away from us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what matters is how we love one another.
Yeah.
You know? And
that is true. It has nothing to do with nationality or whatever.
No.
It is man and man, you know.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah. From all the 120,000 who were cut in Stalingrad, 6,000 came home only. Only 6,000. I saw them in the camp 185 near Gorky. They were standing carrying big trees out of the forest on their shoulders. And these guys, they were not older than me, they were 20 years old, 23, 24. They were standing for counting, you know, in every evening. Proverka, you know, you have to stand in line and they count them all. And they were standing on a stick and they brought a little branch from the forest and they chew on it. There was nothing to chew, so they chewed on a little bit of branch, you know. But they were just about to break down. I mean, I wonder how many died there. In this camp, that was a camp with 8,000 men. And they brought the wood out and they fired a big stove and it made steam and they made electricity for the town of Gorky. And these people, I had no hope for these people. They were so down. And at this time, I was still better than them. But then when I came to Siberia, I was just like them. I jumped down from the train, I couldn't get up. So they had to pull me up and pull me like this, you know, right to the camp. And we washed ourselves with 2 liters water, no towel, no soap. And then we put our dirty uniforms on again. It was in the middle of the 24th of December, it was cold. And then we had to go back to the barrack and there was about a 6 inches step to get into the barrack, and we could not get over this step. There was a guy from Romania here, and they kept your arm and pulled you up one after the next. We couldn't get
Didn't even have
over
the strength.
this. Well, and we were all young guys, you know.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's crazy. Is there anything else that you feel was helping you stay alive, that so you would think of your mom, you would think of what God spoke to you, your sense of humor, your positive outlook, but were there days where, like I know you were suicidal twice, once in battle on the front lines when you got captured, and then when you returned home on re-entry, but were there other times where it just felt like I can't do it anymore? Yeah,
there were many times.
Yeah.
But you know, with God it's like this. If God says, if you believe in me and you love me, I will be with you always. Period. He means it, he has the power to do it. So I knew, and if you are dying, you don't remember God. You don't remember God at all.
Yeah.
But he remembers you. You are...
Yeah, you're...
He is with you.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's right.
And many people cannot believe that, but my life proves it. When the bullets were flying and the grenades, and when I was in minus 20 in the middle of a river and had to swim out, when the time came, when I needed to be saved, I was saved.
Yeah. And there's no, like, sometimes people will say, well, okay, what about all the other people that didn't survive? But, like, we're not God. We don't have all the answers. Some people believe in God and die. Other people don't believe in God and will survive. And there's no telling what will happen, but we're just sharing our story and how God was the strength of our life and the one who was our comfort and our peace, and that's all. You know, we don't have the answers to all the ones that didn't make it or who aren't making it today from other situations. So there's some things that are beyond our understanding, and sometimes we have to just be okay with that and know that one day it will all be revealed, and until then we just keep believing.
I know I have only a few more years to live, but I look forward whatever comes. I'm not afraid to die, I'm not afraid to go to hospital, I'm not afraid at all whatsoever. I know I was cared for in this life, and I will be see my next life, and which my most likely is much, much better than what we have here. And the one who saved me from dying here on the earth, he has a place for me. And he said, I go now to prepare a place for you. That's the most important thing in our life even. It's not a bank account, it's not the money, it's not a title, it's not if you are very pretty or not so pretty.
Yeah, because we can't take anything with us.
No.
And I feel like so many of us, that's what we strive for, is all the material gain or the success or the title, and it's unto what? We're striving for what?
Very happy that you are interested in my story, because it has meaning, you know, that has meaning.
Well, your suffering wasn't in vain.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, yes, I suffered, I was starving almost to death, I was sick many times, and I had very dangerous moments, but you know what, I don't want to miss it, because what happened there was very important to me. Even suffering is very, very important, because we learn while we are suffering, you know. If you are suffering and almost dying, all you want is not money. It is a little bit food and somebody who is good to you, who is mild to you, who loves you. That's what's important. The money in the bank don't give you nothing. What you need is love and the help of God, which we need, because many times we run out of luck.
Yeah. I think that'll be it for today. Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye for now.
Bye for now.